had a horrible life, and they also didn't know why you were always in their mind. Why you
Greetings
always
and
they're so
hotep.
obsessed with you. Because
4:59
people go to
p.m.
sleep. They don't think about someone they hate or someone they
Wednesday,
want to kill
November 8th,
like that deeply.
2023.
People go to
So I
sleep,
just
people
had a
eat, people take a
dream.
shit. Like they take a
I've
break from
been
thinking
begging
about
God
people,
to reveal the
But for
truth to
some
me,
reason, God was
and
like, no, you're gonna keep
He
thinking
just
about this
showed me what
person
the plan was,
because you're in love with
who
them.
was supposed to do what,
But this
and my
person
heart
was
is really
raised by
sad.
serial killers, or this person was raised by like serial cheaters, I heard, or raised by
I've
very
still found a
feral
way
people.
to
Like their family is feral, I heard, or their friends are
at
feral.
least
Like
admit the
they
truth.
act like animals.
I didn't protect my children
And I'm not judgmental because
well enough,
I mean, if you've watched me for a while,
so
or
I
you
don't
know me for
know
a while, you know that
what
like
has
I
really
don't have
happened to
the
my
best
children.
background. My childhood
I was
was not the
so
best. I
busy
wasn't raised by very happy people or
trying to be a goody
non-violent
two
or
shoes
peaceful
that I
people.
missed a lot of
From a very hostile environment.
red
So I'm not
flags.
judging this person, but this is someone who
I want it to be good.
maybe you
I
also
want it to
could
be
have come from
seen
a
as
background
good.
like me, like maybe you relate to me, and maybe you could have also come from a hostile
Maybe I
environment.
wasn't really good.
Are better. You're really good at
I
transmuting
was
it,
not
and you took
really
that
good.
and you used it to get
I
away.
remember when I
This
took
person
my
is dead in
son,
the
I only
face.
had one child, when
Maybe
I
this
went to New
person
York
could have been brought up
to
in a similar
become
way
Miss
to you.
Spike
Like
Lee.
maybe God or
We stayed at
universe
Emmaus
or
House, which is
divine
like a Catholic
put this
ministry
person
for homeless
together in a
people.
similar way to you, and they
I
were
only
supposed
left
to
my
be
child one time,
intuitive
but
or
that's
empathic.
all
They
it
were
takes,
supposed to
right?
do something really good with their experiences,
One
with their
time.
childhood experiences, like what they've been through. Like I said, they could have been through something similar to you. Like if you had a rough
They wanted
childhood,
us
this
to
person
stay in
had a
different
rough life.
rooms.
If this person had a rough
Father
life
David
lesson, you
wanted
had a
us
rough
to
life lesson. But there's
stay in
something about
different
how like
rooms. I said
you
no.
took that lesson and you decided to go your own
However, I
way
left
and
my
let
child
the
that one time
universe
to go
take
to a
you where you need to go with that lesson.
Toastmasters
This
meeting.
person doesn't do that. I think this
Why
person
didn't I
didn't
take
do
my
what they were
child with me
supposed to
to
do
the
because
Toastmasters meeting?
they haven't gotten past that point of like leaving people you hate. This person was raised to think that they have to be around people even though they hate them. Like you have to be around this person even though you hate them. You have to marry
I'm
them even though
sorry.
you hate them sometimes and you want to kill them.
To my children, I apologize.
You have to like they could have been raised to think like you have to
So if I missed
take
that,
care of like
maybe
your family members even if they're
I
hateful
wasn't a
to
good
you, even
sister,
if
maybe
they
I
make you
wasn't a
really,
good
really like
sibling, maybe
really deeply
I missed
upset,
things.
like really mentally affect you, you have to be there for them. It's like it's like certain things you have to unlearn, and I feel like this person still hasn't unlearned it or something like that, and they
I'm
don't
not
know
gonna
what love
share the
is.
dream,
This person doesn't know what love is, and
but in the
this is
dream,
someone that never got to
I
experience
had to
anything.
kill two people in order to
I
stay
think they just
alive.
experience rumors about you, stories, and what they want to think about
The
you,
Spanish
and
lady I
what they
didn't
think
know,
love
but I
should
knew
be
the other
because
person. The other person
they
was
they're just around good
disassembling a
people.
gun to give to me,
Like people who are
and
judgmental, like
every
people who just
time they
like their own
would
mom or dad could be
take
like, oh,
apart,
you're
it
fat,
was
oh,
long.
your skin is ugly,
So
or
every
oh,
time
your
they
hair
would
is
take
bad,
it
or oh, your
apart,
style sucks. Like they
it
could
was
be
like
really
they were
torn down on
aiming a
people.
piece of
What
it
they
at
need
me,
to
and I was
you could
jumping
be
and I would
somebody
grab
like
it
that
and
to
move
you.
it off to the
What's
side,
supposed to happen here is
which
that you're
tells me
supposed to
that
leave this person so that they
my
can
soul
learn
did not
other
trust
ways
that person,
of like
and
growing up. Like there's
I
other
should
ways of
have
growing
been
up
able
that
to
they could.
trust that
Like this
person.
person maybe refused to grow up because they don't know how to process their trauma
I
because
feel
they
like
refuse to leave people that they hate behind.
I kept trying to be around
Like
my
they think that
family,
there's like
and I
invisible
allowed my
obligations there
children
that they like
to get consumed
cannot let go
by
of, that I
evil
think you've let go of a
by
while
being
ago
around
because
my
you started to
family.
realize that the obligations
But what if me trying
attached
so
to these
hard to
toxic
be an
people meant
activist is
nothing
what
because these people
caused my
in your
family to
life,
be
or
attacked
similar
by the
people in your life,
witches?
didn't care
They were
about you
coming for
and
me
wouldn't care if you were like on
when
fire,
I
but
was
they
the
would
one that knew
stay
I wasn't
water.
going to drink, knew
And
I
that's
wasn't
where
going to
you
smoke,
decided to
knew I
value
wouldn't
yourself and
prostitute.
take your energy to
What if
yourself.
my family
This
wasn't strong
person
enough
did the opposite. They just decided to remorse.
to be under the
The
spotlight, to
pain
be
or
under
to
the gun,
hate
and
them.
because I was trying to
And
be
they
this
hated you
activist,
because you're independent. It
those
doesn't make
witches
sense.
came after my
And then you're like,
entire
oh, why am I
family and
thinking about
took
them so
them
much? Why am
down.
I thinking about them so much? If they're such a bad person, why am I thinking about them so much? Their ex told me this about them. This person told me about that, told me this and that about them. Why am I thinking about them so much then? Why do I
I
think they're
always
so
found a way to
attractive? Why do I
blame
think they're so hot?
myself, and
Why do I keep dreaming
many
about
people
them?
say
This
that
person
that's
big
not
dreams about
right,
you. Like they
but
fantasize about you.
I used to watch
They even do it on purpose, and then they
Power
lie to themselves and say they're not. Like you know how
and
like
what's
you
that
sit
other
at
show?
work or you sit
Empire.
at at the dentist
And so
office or
many
at the DMV
times
and you're like, oh, what am I gonna have for lunch? And you can make your mind
I wanted to go to my
on
family and
purpose
say, hey,
imagine what
look
you're
at
gonna have
these
for lunch.
people.
This person can do
Look at
that to you.
Cookie and
This
look at,
person does that about you.
I
This
can't
person
remember her
will
children's
sit at work or
names.
they'll sit somewhere and they'll think about you in
Terrence
a fond
Howard, what
way,
was
in
his
a happy
name in
way,
the
in a like
Empire?
romantic way. But then they'll lie to
They
themselves and say
always
that
come
doesn't
back
mean
and they can
anything
be
or like oh
family
like
even
that's
though,
not love, that's just
they
like a
have
movie
problems.
that I
And there
saw,
were
it's supposed to be
times in the
fake, a
movie where they
cartoon
were
I
gonna
saw.
kill each other,
I heard.
like,
That's really weird.
I
This person
remember
could
that.
be somebody here
But they
could be on the
found a way
spectrum. Somebody here could
around
be
it.
neurodivergent. Like
And that's
somebody here
just a
could watch a lot
movie.
of cartoons or watch a lot of TV.
In real
Like
life, I'm not built
or a
like
lot of
that.
YouTube. Not desperately.
I
Maybe someone here
give,
watches Desperate
and I
Housewives.
think I'm
Someone here
doing a
watches
good
like
job,
every
even when I
episode of
fall
every
short.
show or like every YouTube
I've
video of like
never
this category or like every
wanted to
documentary.
kill
And
any
this
of my
person just
siblings.
thinks that like if they
I
I'm
can't say
sorry
I've
if this is
never
getting really
wanted to
complex, but I
kill
need to go
any of
really
my
soon because this
children
is like we're not
because
supposed to be here this long. There's gonna be
my
somebody that like
first child I was
rationalizes things
gonna
like that. Like
abort
they're like, oh,
because
this isn't
of
real because
shame.
I saw it in a movie
I
once,
wasn't
therefore it's not
married,
real. Like this person doesn't think that
and I
like
was afraid to
things that
marry
exist
his
in romance
father
movies or things that exist in cartoons
because
or
I
things
felt
that are
like I would be in
like that are
danger.
based on real life. Like
But
they
I
don't
had
think
the
they don't.
baby in
This
my
person doesn't
stomach, so
understand
I
like
should have
movies
made
can be
myself
based on
marry
real
the
life. They can
father.
be inspired by real life. Love is like
So
they
that
will
would have
think it
been
has
my first
inspired a lot
line
of
of
music and a lot
protecting
of
my
things out there,
child.
but this person just doesn't believe in it. They
That's the
just
way I
don't. They
see
don't
it.
know. They haven't had a good
But I
example
didn't
of
do
that in
it
their life.
because
And so this person's really
I was
committed.
afraid I might die. Well, we might die.
This
My
person just
child
only
and
knows
myself because
crabs in the
of
bucket. Like they just know like I just need to hit the person beneath me. I
I'm
always need to
still
come in
trying to
with the person.
protect a
Like I need to
man
make sure everyone's
because I
beneath
didn't
me.
want to be a drug
And
dealer's
it's
wife.
like
And I didn't
instead
want
of
somebody
looking up from
kicking
the
in the door
competition or
and
the up from the
coming
race and seeing that
and
God gave them
where
like
is it
the
at? And I
opportunity
don't know what they
to
talking
literally
about.
heal
And I
themselves
don't know
like
where
really
it is.
fast,
And then I end up
honestly,
dead and
with
my child
somebody
end up dead. That's what kept playing in my
because
head.
something about how this person is going in
And I
life is
said,
really bad.
just
Like
get a
their
job
mindset too. Like
and we can get
this
married.
person could have
And
been
he
lied
told
to about
me
a
he
human
wasn't
being
going to work for
racist,
the
but
white
they're the
man.
racist one. Like they were
So I
lied
said,
to
I'm not
by
going to be
racists. Like
a
other
drug
people who
dealer's
are
wife.
racist were lying
And
to
I
them.
didn't marry him.
Confirmation by Lord Hanuman. People, now they're
People want to
surrounded by
hide and
racists
hide and hide. And
that want to
I
shut
hide
them down,
things
that don't
too.
want to
I
see
have
them
very small breasts
come
and I
up.
wear padded
And that's sad.
bras. I
Whoever this
didn't
is,
for a long time
your
because
ancestors
to me
want
my
you to know
body was
about this
beautiful.
because they
But when
want
I
you
got
to
in junior
remember and they
college at
want you
Hillsborough
to
Community
value yourself.
College, people started,
And
no, it
knowing you
was
don't
one
have to
man I
deal
was
with someone
dating
like this and you don't
who
have to be
made me
somebody's
feel
fear.
like my breasts
It's
were too
okay to say
small.
I'm too old to deal with somebody who don't know what
And
the
it
fuck they want
reminds
to
me
do or what they
of
want or they don't
some
know what love is. You
rap
deserve
that Kanye
someone
says
who understands that.
she has a big butt and then for breasts she's
It's
got
not your
two
life
bee
and it's gone.
stings.
And I feel
And I
like
was
it's
so
really
proud of
not your fault.
myself. I
Like
was
this person
working
had a
out, I was
choice
track and field,
to be a
and
better
that
person
person
or to stay in a
kind of
pattern
like helped me to feel
that
shame
obviously
about
wasn't
having
serving
small
them and they
breasts.
chose to
And it
stay in that
happened before
pattern
then when I was
and to
in
see you in
college
this
at
way, to
USF.
see you
There was
as an
this girl,
enemy,
Itza. She
literally
was a
as an enemy.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers swashbuckler, and for some
Like this
reason,
person's like,
she
yeah,
made
like
me
Joe Biden
feel
like
like
it's
my
hot and
breasts were
sexy
not
and
big
stuff,
enough.
but
I prayed and asked
like
God
there's
not to give
something
me
about like
breasts and not
they
to give
saw you
me a
as an enemy.
period.
It's so weird.
And He gave me both still. And my
And
breasts
now this
worked. When
person
I
thinks
get
you don't want
pregnant, they blow up with
and don't
milk,
touch
and
me
I
goodnight. This person
put
thinks
my
that you're
baby to the
repulsed by them.
breast and
Some
they
of you could really
breastfeed.
actually be repulsed by this person or by the thought of them if you know who this
My
is.
menstrual cycle has always been
Or if I'm just
short.
telling you now who this
When I
person is.
started drinking aloe, I could
For all I
literally
know,
have
you might
just
not
like
even know who
one
this is,
day
and this could be like a
of
background
bleeding if
story
I
that
would take the aloe leaf 2 days before, but my normal cycle was 3 days, one heavy, and that was it. And I saw my best friend Glennis. I won't say her last name. I haven't talked to Glennis in at least a decade. So she used to suffer with heavy menstrual cycles, and she would miss her first day was a heavy day, and she would have cramps so bad she couldn't even go to school. And I always thought girls were lying when they said they had really heavy cramps. I was 26 when I had my first real cramp. And there was this nagging little aching feeling in my stomach area, and I kept saying, "What is that?" And I was explaining it to women, and they were like, "Oh, that's a cramp. Girl, you ain't never had that cramp?" No. And so it felt like a contraction when I was having birth. So I want to apologize to my children. I'm sorry. I really, I try hard to be a good mom. And obviously you all can feel that I fell short. If your mom is talking about she was going to abort you, for me, I would just be like laughing and saying, "I'm glad you didn't." But I can see where a child would feel like that would make them feel like they were unwanted. And I did abort a set of twins and 3 other children individually. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. So I murdered 6 people by way of abortion. Maybe these people trying to kill me for money is karma. Even when they took the twins from me, I thought it might have been karma. I killed babies because I wasn't ready to be a mom. I wanted to, get my PhD, and I was chasing status and money, and I killed those children. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna really work to be more sensitive. I'm a blunt person. I tell other people's secrets and truths. I don't even think about it. If people do it to me, I feel like, okay, well, if it's true, it's true. But people don't really live that way, do they? I upset my daughter, who's really sensitive, and I didn't even know she was mad at me. So I called to do a well check for her. That's when you call the police, and then, the police go look for that person to make sure that they're okay. And I sent them to her school. And she's like, "Mom, why would you do that?" I'm like, "I didn't hear from you in a week. I didn't know what was happening." And she said, "Mom, I'm mad at you." I was like, "Well, how was I supposed to know that you're mad at me?" And I'm genuinely an intuitive person, and I'm gonna tell you that God really does speak to me, or the Creator gives me knowledge. Okay? So I didn't even know to ask, Creator, how are my children feeling? I was going to call to do a well check on my firstborn, and then I was going to catch the bus and go out there, because in my spirit, something kept saying, "That child is deceased. That child is deceased." And I was freaking out. I'm like, "No, there's no way. There's no way." And now I'm thinking about the times we spoke, and I said, "Hey, I was going to do a well check." And he was like, "Nope. They have these voice machines where they can mimic people's voices." So the times that I've talked to him since then, I'm wondering if I was even talking to him. When I call and ask for $10, is that really him?
lot of people
because
are kind
things
of
have gotten
forced to
so
go,
out of
or like
order in this
a wedding
family
even where a lot of people are a
that
little uncomfortable or not
putting
really,
policies on
maybe not
people's head
uncomfortable, maybe they're not
or
uncomfortable,
taking their
maybe people are
shit so
comfortable, but
that you can live a good
maybe a place
life
where
is more
people aren't allowed to
important
express
than
themselves fully.
is
Like
the
this could
most
either be a
important
public
thing.
place where a lot of people are it's very
And as
quiet and
sad
everyone
as
can
that
hear
is, it's
you,
just true.
or it could be a
So
workplace
to
or
me,
a
that
work
means there was
celebration where
never
everyone
any
is kind
real
of still
love
there and
between
they can
us.
kind of like
My
see and hear you,
mom
you know what I'm saying? Or
kept us
a
together and made
family
us
party
kind
or
of try to
you
act
know,
and
some
look
sort of
like a family,
celebration.
but
I heard Cheesecake Factory,
the
that's
way
cool.
she was taken out and for what she was taken out,
You might be meeting this
you
person
know,
in that place. I heard
we've never really
convention.
been a
Like you might
family.
be meeting someone in
And
like
you
a
could look at
business
that and say,
oriented
well, it
place
was
or a
her
place
fault because
where
she
you're not
stayed
really
with the man that
allowed
was
to
beating
really
her in
fully be
front of
yourself.
us,
But for some
that
reason,
caused
this
us
person's
to
gonna
really
stand out to you,
feel the
and
way
you're
we
gonna
feel
immediately
about
stand out to this
marriage and
person.
about
But
partners
there's
and
something about
betrayal and
boundaries
how
set in
easily
place for
people
the
can
place that
betray
you're
you,
gonna
how
meet
people
this
can
person
lay
in.
next
Like,
to you
you guys have
and
to act
still
kind of
love hate
formal,
you.
or you guys might have to act like everybody else,
But for
but
my
you both
mom,
know that you're
she saw
safe.
more horrible
Something
things
weird
than we
like that. That you
saw.
both know that you're
So what
attracted
she
to each
went
other, or
through,
that
she didn't
I heard that
think
you guys are gonna be
it
meeting
was
up
even
later.
terrible.
Like something weird like that. Like this could really genuinely be a
I
work
can
situation. This could be an Aquarius that's doing
only
this. You could be meeting
imagine
an Aquarius, or you could be an
the hurt she
Aquarius,
felt to know
Cancer,
how we felt.
or I heard a Sagittarius.
And you go all the way
I'm
back,
not
and it
getting a
really
Sagittarius feeling.
goes
Yours
all
is
the way back to
Sagittarius
slavery
or
and
Scorpio.
what
So
happened to
Scorpio,
us
Aquarius,
during
Cancer,
slavery
Gemini.
and why they beat us so bad. That history is really with mostly
Just know
African
though that
Americans.
whatever situation that you
A
come
lot
across, you are
of
protected.
white people and a
What do you
lot of
think?
other races beat on their children too
I'm
and their
sorry for all these
wives.
random messages and how
You know, the
random this is
frustration of
coming
not
out. I
being
hope that
able to meet
this is
the demands of this capitalistic society
understandable. Sorry, I'm getting brain farts because I have to go and I'm really tired. I
and the
have to go to sleep,
capitalism
guys.
is what's behind slavery too. Now I'm thinking, trying to think like my
Providing
mentor,
living wage. Tell me
my
about this feeling.
psychiatric
Whoa,
mentor,
jealousy. Okay, so
Dr.
I asked about
Francis
your mental
Cresswell
psyche.
Singh, the only person I have ever
Just in
allowed
case, for some of
to
you that want
analyze
to
my
do this,
mind. She was my
you're telling me that this person
psychologist.
isn't going to be mentally
And I
unstable
guess you could say she
forever,
was
or
my
like,
psychiatrist. I've never
mental
seen
illness
her
doesn't go away, you know, like right away. But like,
in
if you
the
are interested in this twin
classification of
flame
a
person, they're saying that
psychiatrist
this
when they wanted me to do
instability
a
isn't going to be there forever. Like,
psychological
I think this
evaluation.
person
I'm
could
like,
be
I'm
like
not gonna
trying to
let
get a new
anybody get in
job
my
or
head
like
because
trying to
these
work on
people,
their karma.
they lie on
This
paper
card also tells me
so
that
they can get the
this
paper.
person will eventually
So I
work
did try
out their
going to
karma
some of
if they
them, but I would
choose to.
take like
It
recorders
is
and
up to
stuff,
this
and so they
person.
didn't
I
want to
mean,
see
it's
me
also up to
if I
you
was
how
going
you
to
continue to
record the
listen to it. But
conversation. They
there
only
will be a
wanted to be
point
able
though
to
that they're saying
record
that this
me
person will
and
eat
tell
out their
their
karma.
one
They
way
will balance
lies.
out the
So I said to
a balanced
Judge
regular
Catherine
person.
G. Esrick,
They will.
I
They
want to
will get
do
to
it
that
in the
point.
courtroom
I think
so
they
that I
need to get a
can
job. I
pay
think they need
a
to
subscriber,
get their
a
priorities. I think
subscriber,
they need to focus on
a
themselves.
transcriber to
I think
document
something
what
is going to
actually happened
happen
because the Tomasis were
really intensely to this person.
butchering
But this
the
doesn't mean that you have to stick around
transcripts
for it. And I feel
of
like
my
this
court
could be something that, requires you to wait.
hearings
And that's up
whenever I
to
would
you.
come to court in the 13th
This person
Judicial
may
Circuit
even
Court.
come up to you and talk to you
So
about
I
it and
said,
ask
whoa,
you
this
if you
is a
would be
real
down for
kangaroo
that.
court around
And
here. And
that's
I was
completely up to
paying
you,
for
but
these
just know
transcripts.
that you are
When I got my
protected right
income
away and
taxes,
that
I
your
would pay
ancestors
hundreds
will
of
have
dollars to
something
get these
better for you
CDs and
really
tapes.
soon. Like
Back in
really soon. You just
2004,
have to make a
they still
choice.
had tapes. Then they moved to the CD disc. So whenever I was speaking my truth, the
This person
Tomasis
wants to find a
would
job
hem it
that
up so
they
that it was
can
inaudible, two
provide for
people
you.
talking at the same time.
This person
And
is
when I
very greedy.
heard my tapes that
If
I had just
you
paid
know this
for, I was
person
so
and this person
devastated.
knows of you
I
and they
called them
get
in New York. I
mad,
said, I hope and pray
which I don't
you
know,
reap
because for
what you
some of
sow.
you,
And I'm
unfortunately,
sure
this
they
person is
did.
a narcissist who,
They
people
used to
don't have
own
their
and
own
run
in the back.
RTI.
For some of you,
So
if this person does, like, if this
they
person
stole
knows
my
what they
children
did
from
and they
me.
do want to, like, fix
And maybe
shit
my
or
mom
something like
helped.
that, like, I don't know, like, fix
So I
the
want to say
lies
to my
I heard,
children,
they feel like like they should get a job, like a really
Maybe
good
you'll have
job,
your
and
own
then they should
children
give
one
you
day.
lots of
Some of you
money,
have
or
your
like
own
they should
children now.
provide like a
Angola
house or
had to be a
something, or
mother
like some
to,
sort of large,
um,
uh,
her younger sister.
what do you call it? Token.
My oldest daughter said she
Or
didn't want to
like,
be a big sister. And after we
I don't
got
know, like something
evicted, she
about like,
tried to step into the shoes and, you know, I'm gonna provide for the family. I don't know if that was genuine or not.
something to, I don't know,
And she had the
make up
makings.
for
She was
things.
right
Like,
there.
it's
I
really
helped
up to
her.
you, and I feel like
Johnny Will often gave me the $40. I
I'm
paid
gonna be
for
real
her
with you,
class.
and this
She
person
went to the
doesn't get
little
this,
lifeguard rookie
and
school. She
you don't even
passed
know,
all
like you're not
the
in this place with
tests
this person,
because
especially
she's
like
like
if
an
this is like a
Amazon
toxic
warrior
boy or
woman.
somebody, especially if this person, if you know who,
That's all
if
my
you already know
girls.
who your twin flame
And my
is, and you know
sons
that this
too.
person chose someone else
My
over you,
sons
which is a
are
very
ascended
common
masters.
twin flame
And they can
shit
go
thing.
right or they can go left.
If you
Everybody has free
decide to
will.
like take this person's gift and shit, I feel
Um,
like it's gonna take a while for you to like
and I didn't protect her. I remember being on the phone with
to
her and
even
she
like
wanted to go
see this
outside
person back the way
and
you
hang out. She
did.
was
I'll be
staying at the
really honest with
GSI
you, and I
separate
don't wanna
from
be
us
like really
because
like
we were
negative, but
evicted
I
by
feel like for
A
some,
Plus
I
Properties,
feel right
Eric
now that you
Allen,
better
which I think is
like
a
you feel like
pseudonym
I
for
feel
Anthony
dull. Like I feel
Atkins.
really dull
Because you know
and
they
gray,
hide
like
things with these
the
fake
love
LLCs.
that could have been
Thanks
once
to an
there for
attorney
this twin
called
flame
Toby
is kind of
Smith.
fading.
This is
Like
how he
it's like
protects
dead.
businesses
And it's this
from,
person's fault,
legal
dude. Like they
retribution.
killed it. They took too long. They took you for
I felt
granted,
like I
or they
should
took
tell her
whatever
to
this
go up
was
in the
for granted.
room,
And I feel like
and
they
I
think that
didn't.
bringing in like some
And
sort of
she went
financial thing is
outside and
going
hung
to
out
wake you
with,
up, but
some
you're not like
has-beens.
other girls. You're not other girls. You're
And
not
that's
other
what I
guys. You're
call
not
people
other
when they
women. You're
30
not
years old and their life
like
still
a fancy wedding
fucked
ring
up.
or a
They
fancy
ain't
handbag isn't,
really doing
or
nothing about it.
shoes
And
isn't
they were
going
passing
to win
around
your
weed.
trust again. You know what I'm
And
saying? Like
Galvin, Emisibe passed it to my child and she tried it.
that's why I'm like, I don't know. I feel
Now,
like it's gonna take you a
I'm the
while
one who
to
didn't want to try drugs, didn't want to try
reaccept
drinking, didn't
this,
want to try
and also
prostitution.
it's gonna take a while
I
for
can't assume that
ancestors
my
to even
children don't
like,
want to experiment with certain things in life.
open
So
the
because
gates of
she did
protection
that,
for them.
I said, I don't want you to go down there and take a drug test because you might come up positive. And I'm looking at it now, so what if she did come up positive? But for
But also,
me,
you know what
it was like
happens
some black
is
scar
you
that
love
would
your
mess her
cousin
up for the rest
that
of her career.
this person is
But
very
more
jealous of.
importantly, when I had that
Jealousy is
feeling
vibrant. Some of you
that
guys
said you're gonna be
smoke
mean, but
weed,
the first feeling I had was tell
but
her to take her A up in that
this
room and go
person
to
is a
sleep.
highly jealous
She shouldn't have
person.
been hanging out with 30-year-olds, but I
And
let Melina fool me.
I
Melina,
feel like
aka
if
Jubilee
you're meant
DeBeck,
on
is
your
supposed
twin
to be
flame
her real name,
journey,
but I think she's a fraud worker,
I
so
think
she's got
that
many names, I'm sure.
you starting new
She and
and
Galvin were
going
boyfriend
on
girlfriend, and I
to
think they
provide
both
yourself with
had
that
many
twin
different
flame, you
names because I
providing
think they
yourself
were
with that
both
house,
into
providing
the
yourself
fraud
with
working.
that
He would
love,
always be
and
willing
then
to swipe a
attracting
card,
a new thing
but
that
if you
people
ask him
love
for
into your
$10,
life,
he can't
and
hardly
like
part with no
just
cash.
living your life, and
And
make
now
this
looking
person
back
really
on that,
jealous.
that
And I
means
think
he
at
probably
one
went on the
point, I
black
think what makes
web
this
and paid for
really tough for
somebody's
me
credit
is
card in
that like
somebody else's name,
at one point
or the
the
shit could have been in
jealousy
my
was like,
name and I
I'm
didn't know.
jealous of
You
you for
understand me?
being having
He
more
could always
protection than
swipe,
me.
swipe,
I'm
swipe, but
jealous
when
of
it
you
came to
for,
cash, he was
even if
not
you're a
giving
woman,
up
I'm
that
a man or
cash,
vice
man.
versa or whatever.
To
Like even though blah blah
that's what
blah,
that
like it makes
spoke
sense for
to.
me to be in love with you. I'm
So I
jealous of
want to
you
get
because
back to
I'm not in the right
apologizing to my
place in my
children.
life, or like I don't feel good enough, and I can't get
I'm
past
sorry.
that. And now it's turned
I
into
hope
I'm
and pray
jealous
you
of
all can
any
make a
person
great
who
life
has
for
access
yourself.
to
I
you.
hope
I'm
and
jealous
pray
of people who can breathe the
you can
same
live with
air
the
as you.
decisions that
This
you
person
make and
could
you
be
can
very spiritually unawakened, or
find a
they could
way
be really
to
behind spiritually when it comes to stuff like this. Like this person doesn't
live
even know
with
what a twin flame
your
is. This
mistakes.
person doesn't know what soulmates are. They don't believe in it. This person just
I
like
never wanted
believes
to
in
kill my
items,
mom.
cars, money,
I used to pray
shoes,
that God
and
would
so
kill
when
my
they
dad.
see that they just
I
understand
never
greedy. So when
wanted
they
to
start
kill him.
seeing like,
I always thought I might have
oh,
to, trying
you,
to defend my mom,
even though like
but I never
this could be
wanted to
somebody who
kill
sees it
him.
like, oh, you don't have
I just
riches,
want
you
him
don't
to
have a
stop
nice car.
beating on my
I'll
mom,
buy those things for you, and maybe
and
you will see
I
me as
wanted
someone
her to
who
be
can love me.
safe.
And it's like that
It wasn't until I got into my 20s that I thought,
I think how this person's
well,
gonna be really, really
she
jealous
need
and
to,
really mentally fucked up
she
over
should have
you
did
is
it to him.
seeing you go for
And
somebody
now I'm thinking maybe she
possibly
did cheat on
physically
him.
less.
Maybe
And I'm
she
not
and
saying
her
that you're gonna
mom
go
was
out with a
doing roots
peasant
on
or
him,
something
and
or like that, but
she
like,
knew
and
they
this
were
is not
putting
gonna have to
spells on
be
him,
like,
and she
they
knew
just
that
be friends because
him
this
beating
person's
on
so
her was
jealous. They
part
don't
of
even
the
like that people are friends with you
backlash
and
or
you
return
think
to
they can't
sender.
even talk to you.
Now, as a
Like
fully
it's stupid.
grown
Like that you're even friends
woman
with
who
people that
has
are
almost
humble,
all
friends with
of
people
the
that don't have
keys,
fancy cars, people
maybe
friends
I
with
do have
people
all
that
the
are
keys.
um
But
not
look
very
how long it took.
materialistic
I'll
people
be
who
53
focus
this
on
month.
creating things, people who are spiritual. Like this person could
They might have
look at them and
done
just be really
something to him,
jealous because
and he knew,
you can't buy
but he loved
personality,
her,
you
so
can't
she was
buy spiritual wealth,
binded to him,
and
and
you
he was
definitely
binded
can't
to
buy
her,
knowledge, you can't buy
even in the
charm,
midst of
you
the
can't pay
whatever she did to
somebody to
him.
see you as
He
somebody
would
who
always say, you know, you don't know everything. Your mama, she's not,
deeply jealous
who she
and
thinks she is, or she
really
don't tell you
upgrading
everything. So
themselves because
all
this
I
is
knew is what I
where
saw. My mom
I
gets
have
up
all this
early,
money, I
goes
have
to
all this
work,
wealth,
comes
I
home,
attract people
cooks
with
soul
money,
food
that's
Sunday
why
every day.
I'm
We even have
attracting people
leftovers. You
that
still
in
out
my
of her
life,
purse
and
and
it's
buy
like
alcohol. You
you
don't go
just
to
don't
work. You
have the
lay here in the
substance, you just
chair
don't
and
have
you're
the
drunk all
flavor,
the
bro.
time.
You just don't
But
have
what
it.
if they did that to him? What if she wanted to be
I don't
with
know.
him? She
There's
did a
something
love
weird about that.
spell, separated
And if
from
this is like a
him
friendship
from who he
situation
really
again, it's
wanted
like
to
that.
be
It's like
with. And,
why I
a
have
lot
these
could have
things
happened
the
that I didn't
reflector
know.
doesn't have?
And
Why
they
don't
believe
I
in
have
taking it
all
to the
the friends
grave.
that they have? Like this person
I
is
want my children to be able to say, I hated you for a long time. Every time you tell that I was going to abort
karmic
you to
behavior.
go
They're
take
like
my athletic
gotta have a mental
scholarship. I
breakdown
hate that
because
story. It
there's
makes
gonna
me
be
feel
something
like
here that's very
I
obvious
messed up your
about
life.
what's
And I
different
don't
between
feel
us
like my children ruined my life.
mentally.
I felt like the
Like that
baby
can't be
daddy
covered
did
up with
that
money.
shit. I
No.
really did. I
See, this
wasn't
person
mad
wants
with
to
the
take back
child.
their rejection.
But for
They
you
don't
to try
want
to
they want
intentionally
to
get me
take back the
pregnant,
fact that
to
they said
marry
no to
me, and
you.
then I say,
But it's like the
okay, we can
universe
get
is
married,
like,
just get
you're
a
no
job, and
longer
you
the
say,
same
no,
size
I'm
shoe as
not
this
working for
person.
the white man.
You're
It's
already
like you
outgrowing them.
didn't really
Like you
want to
already
marry me.
outgrew them. At one point
And
you were
not
the
to
same
mention,
size as
before
this
that,
person. At one
running
point you
around with
had
all
the
the little
possibility
girls,
to both grow
having them jump
together,
on your
but
moped, riding
unfortunately because
past
this
my
person was too
house to let me
egotistical
know
and focused on the things
that my
that was
so-called
so worried about what
boyfriend is
other
at
people thought,
her
that
house,
now
hanging
you've
out with
outgrown them.
her.
Your foot is way too big
I guess it's all just
and they're
life.
way too small.
But I didn't know how to pick a proper mate,
And now
or,
this person's stuck with you and you don't want to
I
see them
didn't
win.
know what
And
a good man looks
it's not
like.
your
I
problem.
knew
And I'm sorry to put
he
that type of
always
reading, but maybe someone needed to
was
hear
at
that.
the basketball courts, and I liked going to the basketball courts, and
Hey, thanks
so
for joining me.
seemed like we had something in common. I never thought
Universe.
about whether he could provide for me, or be a good
If this
provider, or
person really hurt
protect
you,
me, or,
this
you
person,
understand me?
just know that this person is going to have to
So
get a job out of necessity
I
that they
want
don't
to
like.
do
EDD in reverse.
what I can
This
do
person could have
to
tried to
heal
get
my children's
unemployment and the
hearts.
unemployment
I
didn't go
want them
through
to
or
be
didn't pay this
honest
person
and
or
tell
it
me
was
what they
seemed like
feel.
weird. So this person's out of desperation going to
And
have to get
out of
any
trying to
job
be
that will make them up.
appropriate,
Like any
I
last
aborted
minute
children
job
because I
that
hadn't
is
gotten
looking for
married yet.
someone and it could be
And
like
I didn't
cleaning
want them to have to
toilets,
live under the banner
sweeping
of being a
stuff,
bastard.
working in a
It's
factory,
hard to live under
like
all these
something
negative labels.
super
And what I
like
love about the children now, and I
exhausting.
keep
Not that
pointing out
there's anything
Polo
wrong
G
with those
because he's
professions,
just one
but
of
I'm just
many,
saying
but
like certain jobs where they need a
his
lot of help,
lyrics are
like
on my
service
mind.
industry where they
I
need
wanted
help
to
right away
rewrite
and they just
Barely
don't
Holding
have a
On
choice. Like they just have to go get
because,
that job to pay
I
the
was
bills
taught
immediately
to
because this person really put you through it, maybe
do
because
that
of
positive
your
thinking
financial
shit.
situation.
And I thought,
Maybe
well,
this person really
what
put
really fucked me up a long time ago when I
maybe this
left the
person really
church and
put
I
you
was trying
through
to
it.
figure out what the truth
Now this
was,
person could
I
have
said, what if they
like
came up
that
with this
box and
whole
wear
positive thinking
visor
genre
and wear
so
foolscap
that they could
shoes.
really
Maybe
just
you
take your
guys work
destiny
at
from you and
McDonald's or you
keep you
guys have
separated
something
from
that
the
you're
truth? What if
independent
there
of
was no karma? What if
or something, and this
they
person really
created the
wanted you or
concept of
showed up to
karma
your
to
job or
disarm
like
you
tried to
from
make sure
being
that this person
like the
got
Old
paid
Testament
by
said, an eye for an eye, and going and getting your own retribution?
drive through window when you drive by
and it separated me from a foundation for a long time.
And I feel like this is somebody who has a lot of
So I started saying, Creator, you gotta show me that this is real. You gotta show me that vengeance is truly yours and you really do make sure people reap what they sow. And he showed me some things. And when I say he, I mean she and he. Because if you got a holy trinity of men, I don't know how you can get a baby out of that. So the Holy Spirit in my mind is the mother. She's a woman. And that's how you get the baby. Because you need somebody who has some eggs who can carry and hold the baby. But in nature, there are male species and a couple of things that can make a baby within that male species body. There are male species that take over the parenting after the female gives birth to the eggs. So, with something that can create something, they can create a male to actually have a baby. And probably in another 20 years, they're going to genetically modify bodies where men can drop eggs out of their scrotum sacs and maybe even have a member on them where they can, flip down their penis into their vagina and impregnate themselves. Seems like they're trying really hard to do these things. So, with science and genetic modification, new things can happen. I can acknowledge that. So, I send healing to my children's hearts right now. I genuinely love you. And for what I know love to be, I try to be duty bound because love has always confused me. Kept saying, Lord, what is love? I mean, everybody who tells me they love me, they screw me over, they do me something. So I tried to focus more on being committed to provision for my children. So I'm proud of all of you. This life thing is hard. I guess I'm done. That dream is really taking the flavor out of life. I'm sure it will return.